Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sirhan on X, live from Cincinnati, Ohio, here in the United States. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 4th of February 2025. Just want to give a big shout out to those sharp betting over at the UK for having me earlier today. Recordings will be coming up next week. Also, of course, shout out to my fellows over at the Boxing Hub. Thanks for having me on for the fight series. Got a chance to talk about one of my all time favorites here, the great. Had themselves a wonderful day. Lots to touch on today on the show, and I will go ahead and get down right to it real quickly. Uh, Actually, weather got a little nippy here in Cincinnati today, so let's hopefully that clears itself up. Gonna get this adjusted here. There we go. So now let's get right down to it. Of course, news broke out of LA overnight was that the Rams are going to look to trade Cooper Kupp to a team of a feasible fit, simply because I guess they're ready to move on from him. It's probably best in the interest of both parties, I think, to part ways because that both teams want to go in a different direction, and I think the Rams want probably more salary cap reasoning for it to try and clear some room because they have issues to fix, obviously. But I think it's a good thing that they can come some ahead with this and understanding of what's going on. It's going to be weird to see Cooper Kupp in a uniform outside of being in an LA Ram uniform. I still think he's a solid receiver. Could be good for various teams. Could be a solid fit. A pro's pro who knows the game very, very well. Of course, not the guy he was back in 2021 when he helped the Rams win the Super Bowl, but it's still a very, very formidable receiver. Maybe a good high-end number two at this stage of his career. Maybe put him in Detroit with a guy like Amon St. Ra Brown next to him. I think they'd be a good tandem. Somebody mentioned the Chargers opposite Lad McConkey. I think that'll work. Give Justin Herbert a nice target there. The Patriots might be interested. They're looking for a receiver. Maybe a team like Washington who can use a receiver opposite Terry McLaurin could use a guy like Cooper Kupp. I think he'd be a nice fit there. He still has enough game left where I think he can make an impact on any team he wants. Just obviously, he and LA just feel the need to go in different directions. Still a formidable receiver. I think the Rams could get a good compensation package out of it because he's still a very decent receiver. Also, another team that's mentioned, the Steelers opposite George Pickens, could actually help because Cooper Kupp can probably help George Pickens in his immaturity issues, help him grow up a little bit. Because we know one thing about Cooper Kupp, he is a pro's pro. He knows how to carry himself on the field, and he's going to be a solid acquisition still, even at this stage of his career, at wherever he plays. I think he'll be solid wherever he goes, and I think, you know, whoever gets him is going to have a solid wide receiver piece. A good solid body, still solid hands. Probably not the number one receiver like he once was, but still more than good enough to, I think, make an impact on any offensive roster. Gives any quarterback a good target. So we'll see where that direction goes when the free agency season opens, when the league new year kicks in. I'm sure talks are going to start right now, but we'll see where that goes. I expect Rams to get a solid asking price and get some decent compensation out of it, draft pick wise, excuse me, or maybe something else. But I think that's where we're headed with Cooper Kupp and the Rams. I think both teams smartly just need to part ways a little bit. I have a comment here. Interesting on Kupp. Yeah, just let's throw some suggestions out here because you know how the rumor mills go. I just think he's still a solid fit anywhere he goes. He's not the guy he was in 21, but still good enough. We'll see. We know how the offseason is going to be. By the way, shout out to you, Fantasy Pat. Hope you're doing good. I'll see you. I'll be on your show here after this. Of course, still the lingering after effect of the news that took place yesterday in Cleveland was, of course, a scenario with Myles Garrett asking the Browns for a trade. And apparently the Browns fans and the Browns organization just fallen off the cliff after that happened. Now I remind you what you guys did 3 years ago when you forked out 3 first-round draft picks and basically a bunch of other stuff to land Deshaun Watson. And on top of that, not only did you give up the 3 future first-round draft picks, which Houston's put a hell of a roster together with the C.J. Stroud at their quarterback. You paid Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract after all of the allegations off the field. Do you guys know that? I told you guys where uh, this was going to happen 3 years ago because that's how the salary cap is. And the question here is, where do I think Garrett's going to go? Interesting choices here. I think I think a team like Buffalo or even a Philly who needs an edge rusher could help. Probably one of those two teams. I could see other places. I think a Chargers might be nice, but if you hold me to it, I think they will try to get him to an NFC team more than likely, probably Philadelphia, because they have the compensation for what the Cleveland Browns need. But see, hang on here for a second, I messed up. But that's what I think is going to wind up happening there. He probably goes to an NFC team more than likely. Some people say he might go to Baltimore. I know people in Cincinnati want him. They're definitely not trading him to a division rival. You might as well forget that. That's just idiot talk, if you know what I mean. But I think he goes to a NFC team. But to go back to what I just said, this was the ripple effect of when you forked out 3 first-round draft picks, what Cleveland did to get Deshaun Watson and signing him to the fully guaranteed contract. This was going to happen. When they thought they signed Deshaun Watson to that contract, they thought they were going to reset this QB market, which didn't happen. They thought they were going to run Lamar Jackson out of Baltimore. That didn't happen. They thought they was going to run Joe Burrow out of Cincinnati. That didn't happen. Turns out they're running their own guys out. I mean, mid-season, they basically ran Amari Cooper out in the trade. They ran Juan Thornhill out a couple years ago. Run Juan Thornhill now, excuse me, my bad. Run him out after they got him from Kansas. And now they're going to run Myles Garrett out of town. And you talk about the face of the Cleveland Browns franchise since they came back into the NFL in 1999. It's an overall bad look, simply because I said all along, if you're going to sign this kind of a contract to a player like this, you better net results, and they have not net results. I told everybody 3 years ago what the results were going to be. And not to mention, when you signed Deshaun Watson to that contract, you openly threw Baker Mayfield under the bus. And look what Baker Mayfield is doing in Tampa Bay as a result. Boy, did you guys in Cleveland mess up bad, because I told you from the get-go this was going to happen. And I'm not want to tell you I was right or I told you so. I let the results dictate that, because it was going to come to this point. You can't just sign a player like this to a fully guaranteed contract and not expect any kind of repercussions in the end. Fork out the draft picks you forked out to get Deshaun Watson and not expect any kind of negative results. I mean, for years, they thought they were going to be the cream of the crop for this 3-year period to overtake Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati in the AFC North. Now, they got to the playoffs in 2023, but that's because they called Joe Flacco off the couch. That was why they got to the playoffs. The ripple effect is coming because you're talking about a near $85 million cap hit going into 2025. I know they restructured, but the cap hit's still not good. There's going to be a mess in Cleveland. That's going to take a long time to clean up. I wish you guys nothing but the best of luck. And of course, the Super Bowl coming up, and of course, everybody's griping about the field again. I guess they put like some kind of synthetic turf in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. I got a chance to see it on one of the platforms. I actually liked it. Now, nobody can complain about the turf when the game is played, simply because I just think that it's just moronic for the people in Philadelphia to complain about it, when basically what happened in the second half was you had the 10-point lead on Kansas City 2 years ago and couldn't finish the job, especially against a so-called one-legged Patrick Mahomes, who in the second half just sliced your defense apart, found a way to get to the end zone a few times. And of course, the end game where James Bradbury holds Juju Smith-Schuster to set up what turned out to be the game-winning field goal. But nobody can complain about anything on the field or anything in Philadelphia right now. You got a chance to get out there, get your payback on Kansas, and now you got a chance to do it by shutting your mouths and getting the job done. There's no excuses now. Don't blame the field. Don't blame the refs. Don't blame anybody. You tried that 2 years ago. It backfired, especially from Chris Gardner Johnson, who got trashed on the internet 2 years ago. I mean, the guy got trashed by Orlando Brown Jr. That's all you need to know. But you have no excuses now to simply get out there and get the job done. There's an opportunity there for you guys to get payback from losing the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Get the job done. Don't make excuses, because you guys don't have any. It's basically either you win or you lose. The excuses are basically not existent for you guys right now. I seen the whole thing. And of course, speaking of the Chiefs, And of course, a favorite topic everybody wants to talk about is, of course, the refereeing. Of course, it was earlier today, the member of the NFL Referees Association, Scott Green, came out and basically said to accuse us of colluding or conspiring to help a team was absolutely ridiculous, which I agree with. We know the refereeing is terrible. That's a part I wish he would have addressed. The refereeing is terrible. I get it. Refs are human beings. They're going to make mistakes game for game and every game, as we know, simply because they're human beings like all of us. I mean, I've seen missed calls all over the place, actually, especially in Cincinnati and Buffalo, who do the most griping right now about referees for whatever reason to fulfill their benefit. The problem I have here is if you're going to talk about this, maybe not talk about ways to make that part of your game better. That's right, a little problem I have, because everybody's complaining about are the calls getting right, are the calls not getting right, especially in these days when they have all this advanced technology where you should be able to get the call right and not worry about having extensive replays. And now they have this thing called replay assist. Now they're talking about some kind of a audio thing coming up in 2025 seasons for first downs, where you can probably measure the first down quicker, which is because Bills fans don't know how to stop crying to save their lives. I don't know what that's going to get you, but to make this claim that the game is rigged and the game is fixed for a team, that part Scott Green is right. It's just pathetic. I mean, if the game was rigged the way you guys think it is for the Kansas City Chiefs, why don't you guys just place your bet on your entire life savings, everything you own on the Chiefs coming up in the Super Bowl? Place a $1 million bet. Place a bet your house, bet your 401k account, bet your savings account, bet your cars, bet your tractors, bet your acres of land. Bet it all on the Chiefs if you think the refs are going to rig it for the Chiefs, and see where that gets you. If you really think it's that, bet everything, because you're going to win it all back. Because if you still think it, bet everything you own on the Chiefs in Vegas. If you don't, just please shut up and go away, because it's just stupid in my opinion. I get it; it's a perception thing, but I wouldn't even go that far, because you would need more proof for this to happen. Because if it were to happen, there'd be people doing time in the slammer right now because of it. Think about point shaving scandals in college, or the Tim Donaghy fiasco in the NBA back in 2007. They would get caught if that was the case. But if you think the NFL is rigging it for the Chiefs, if you really think it, bet your life savings, bet everything you own, every penny you have, every article of clothing you wear on the Chiefs, if you think it's rigged for the Chiefs, because it's a safe bet you would get it back. I'll be probably talking more about this later. Of course, the other day was, of course, Super Bowl week. I got a chance to see both teams and both players. Extreme confidence both ways, extreme confidence all the way around. I think it's going to be a good game, just like it was 2 years ago. All I'm going to say is may the best team win. Thursday, I'll make my official prediction. All I'm just going to say is no excuses either way around, especially from you guys in Philadelphia. You have a chance to get your revenge. Get out there and get it done. Not saying I'm rooting for you, not saying I'm rooting against you, but to spare your excuses, get out there and get it done. You have a chance this year to do it. I'll break this game further probably tomorrow and Thursday and give my final prediction. But I like the press conferences for both teams. Of course, the two standout quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, very, very confident, very, very ready. Both teams enjoying the Super Bowl stuff. Looking forward to the game coming up this Sunday. And of course, speaking of Super Bowls, of course, it was Super Bowl 42 that took place here 18 years ago in Arizona. If you guys remember, it was the New England Patriots looking to pursue history to try to finish the season undefeated, facing the New York Giants. It was forever known as the David Tyree game. Of course, the play, Eli Manning looks like he's locked up in the pocket, scrambles out once, somebody grabs his jersey, finds a way again, fires a pass where David Tyree catches the ball on top of his helmet, goes down for the first down, which keeps the drive alive on a 3rd and 5. Of course, a few plays later, it sets up to turn out to be the game-winning touchdown from Eli Manning to Plaxico Burress, who made the guarantee that they were going to beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and basically they did it. Everyone's, of course, confused as to which was better, the catch or the pass. How about the whole play as a whole was great, because it takes two to tango with this. David Tyree doesn't catch that ball unless Eli Manning throws that pass. And of course, Eli Manning's not throwing the pass to Casper the Friendly Ghost either. You had to find someone to throw it, just throw it up, land it around David Tyree's head. He caught the ball, and it got the first down. Of course, the 2007 season was marked for the New England Patriots with Spygate Week 2, and of course, all the hoopla that came after it. The Patriots ran basically the field throughout the regular season. Need I remind you, there was a late season finale game between the Patriots and the Giants, where the Giants gave New England all they could handle till the Patriots pulled away in that season finale to preserve the undefeated regular season. Of course, the Patriots didn't necessarily look all that great in the two playoff games against the Jaguars and the Chargers at home before the Super Bowl appearance. Giants, they went on to represent the NFC. Biggest one, of course, was when they went to Green Bay and won it. The story of that game, of course, was Tom Coughlin on the sideline looking as red as blood with his face in that superly overly freezing cold weather with a game where they kicked the game-winning field goal to go to the Super Bowl. In hindsight, maybe we should have seen this coming, even though a lot of people didn't. And I say this for this reason. That as the New England Patriots was starting to run the table on that regular season from that 2007 season, from about week 12 on, you started to see some kinks in their armor, especially on the defensive side, where I thought they should have found a way to retool that defense when they didn't. I mean, a big chunk of their defense was starting to be a case of a year or two too old, and it started to show. And of course, the end of the season game against the Giants, where the Giants gave everything all they can handle. And the Giants saw something in that game that nobody did. They took that formula, went to the Super Bowl, and that defense just put the clamps and put the beat down on Tom Brady, basically forcing a fumble, sacking him, I think it was like 5 times. That defensive front, led by Justin Tuck and Michael Strahan, did the job. And of course, the clutch plays by Eli Manning, the one to David Tyree, and of course, the game-winning touchdown to Plexico Burress. Giants win the Super Bowl, stopping the New England Patriots' run to perfection that season. Still historical, still a sizable upset, which I'll talk about sizable upsets in probably next week, because we have a historical one I'm going to compare it to. So that is my NFL segment. Before I get to the boxing segment, brief touch on the NBA. Still the residue of the Luka Doncic trade. Now, I guess people think somebody came out and says the GM, Nico Harrison, says he's not expecting to have a long time tenure as a general manager. I think he just punched his ticket out of Dallas, and basically, when he gets out of Dallas, he better leave with an armed army or something, because Dallas fans are going to let him have it for pulling off what he pulled off with the Luka Doncic trade, simply because we know the story with that. It's not the fact that he got traded. He basically traded a franchise guy without even communicating with him, the coaching staff, or anyone within the Mavs personnel about what his intentions are. He just basically made a phone call to Rob Pelinka, the GM of LA, and said, "You want Luka Doncic?" and not even say anything to anybody else. And not only that, yesterday in the press conference, he openly admitted that he did it like that, with Jason Kidd sitting right next to him. And you can see the look on Jason Kidd's face, because it said it all right there. I mean, his tenure over there is probably can't end fast enough. He more likely is going to get an LA job, because the feeling is he's on the Lakers payroll after this trade. And it's not only that, you get nothing outside of Anthony Davis. What do you get back in value? I mean, you only got one first-round draft pick when I said all along. The Brooklyn Nets got more out of trading Mikal Bridges to the Knicks than this. And the Spurs got more, definitely way more, out of trading DeJounte Murray and Derek White a couple years ago than the late Mavericks got for this. It's just an all-around bad look and a bad play. He probably gets the LA GM job, but that's probably it, because it's just bad business all the way around and just a dirty, dirty look for Nico Harrison. I mean, if you didn't see Luka Doncic as a franchise guy, I get it. But the fact he did it without even saying a word to anybody or anything about it, this is what I needed to know about how you guys carry business. Fact is, even Mark Cuban, I don't even see Mark Cuban in any of this. I mean, where is he? I mean, it just looks bad on him also. The world of sports trades. One thing that's come to conclusion out of all of this: nobody's untouchable in any sport anymore. the word untouchable, I think, is basically done. I mean, I would say it's not totally done, but it's darn close. We can trade a top 4 franchise guy who hasn't even hit his peak yet like this. That's all I need to know. Nobody's untouchable anymore. Not in any sport. The guy you call your franchise guys, I'm not even sure that even exists because this set a new standard for what's called the franchise player or the untouchable player. Now, of course, we conclude, of course, some historical moments in the sport of boxing. As a people like to call my specialty. I don't like to call it a specialty because I think I'm knowledgeable in every sport. Boxing, NFL, college football. Even pro and college basketball, and even baseball and soccer. But I'll have at it. It was about 46 years ago today, over in Italy. A rematch that took place, a performance of a lifetime that was given. This was a rematch between standout all-time great lightweight Alexis Arguello against Alfredo Escalera. This was a rematch of Alexis Arguello capturing the world title in the backyard of Escalera, winning it on a 13th round knockout. The Escalera people cried foul on several things, so they had to have a rematch. Alexis Arguello was just a picture of beauty in his day. I mean, didn't necessarily have the greatest physical specimen for a guy in that class, but one of the premier sharpshooters of his era. When he threw, he landed, and when he landed, he did damage. It's across 3 divisions: featherweight, super featherweight, and lightweight. He takes on Alfredo Escalera, very rugged guy, standout Puerto Rican fighter. Probably doesn't stand out amongst the all-time great Puerto Rican fighters, but a very darn good fighter himself. But in the rematch here, he was in over his head because he was in over his head when they fought the first time when Arguello won by knockout. Same thing here. Basically, the Arguello left hook just basically landed all night. Prompted to 3 knockdowns in this fight in the 4th, 5th, and 13th rounds. And basically after the 13th round, when Arguello floored Escalera in the 13th round, fight was basically stopped when he got up because Escalera basically fell back down again. It sort of reminds you of just how terrific Alexis Arguello was in the 70s and 80s. More like the back end of the 70s in those lighter weight classes, at a time when, Ali was the king of the crop in the sport and Roberto Duran was coming on. Alexis Arguello was just a thing of beauty to watch. I mean, nothing flashy in any particular area, just did everything well and strung it out consistently to where he was able to dominate the sport for over a 10-year period. This fight with the rematch with Alfredo Escalera was probably the perfect example of that. Nothing great, just perfectly placed punches, especially with that left hook on the face of Alfredo Escalera. And basically, Escalera was down 3 times till the fight was stopped in the 13th round. A standout fight it was. But Alexis Arguello, you talk about probably a top 30 all-time great fighter pound for pound. Had some memorable fights after that. Wins over guys like Ruben Olivares, Jose Luis Ramirez. Of course, in 1981 against Ray Mancini. The 2 epic battles with Aaron Pryor, especially the first one where it was a give-and-take fight both ways. But an all-time elite great was Alexis Arguello. Probably a top 3 all-time great super featherweight with guys like Julio Cesar Chavez, Floyd Mayweather, among many others. Definitely up there. Now, of course, for Alfredo Escalera, still had a solid career, won a belt, but still remembered for getting one of the all-time gift decisions in one of the most egregious and despicable acts in boxing history. That was when he beat Tyrone Everett in Everett's backyard in a fight where he basically got his ears boxed off, but somehow got the decision. And it set outrage all over the place in Philadelphia. That's basically Alfredo Escalera's legacy, unfortunately, because he was a standout fighter himself, couple world titles. But that's basically going to be his legacy. The 2 fights with Arguello and getting a gift decision over Tyrone Everett in some of the most weird and bizarre circumstances and the most boxing reasons possible. And of course, another historical night that took place, more modern, took place 35 years ago today at Atlantic City. It was Hector Camacho against Vinny Paz, then known as Vinny Pazienza. I guess he calls himself Paz now, but I still love the guy. When you're on your downturn as an athlete, you always try to find that one fight or that one performance in any sport where you just have it in you for one last time, that extra magic moment. Maybe for Hector Camacho, this was it. Because after the Edwin Rosario fight in 86, he basically just got almost, it was borderline written off because he basically became a safety first fighter, never was the fighter he was before the Rosario fight, where he was just the flashy fighter that dazzled you with his speed and combinations. He fights Vinny Paz, a rugged, tough guy out of the East Coast, mainly out of Providence, Rhode Island, basically in Pazienza's backyard, basically Atlantic City, but anybody knows Pazienza at that time in the Northeast, wherever he went, he drew a crowd. It was basically a pro Pazienza crowd that night in Atlantic City. And Hector Camacho basically turned back the hands of time this night and basically put on a solid performance, basically beating Vinny Pazienza almost at his own game and basically busting him up, destroying his face, and getting a unanimous decision win. The synopsis of this fight was, this was weeks before the giant super fight, St. Patrick's Day in 1990, between Julio Cesar Chavez and Mildred Taylor. The winner of this fight was going to probably be the standout opponent or the standout name for the potential winner of that fight, because the division was basically the division at that point, especially with Chavez and Taylor. Camacho got the win. Of course, if he got the win because of his namesake, he was going to be in that sweepstakes. And he got it, and he put on one of the better performances he had in quite some time when he beat Vinny Pazienza. You could probably argue his last great performance at his peak level, because he never got to that level ever again. Goes the story there. After the fight, he got rehooked on the substance abuse and alcohol and drugs that he was known for. Got the 2 wild fights with Greg Haugen, and that was basically it. Lost to Chavez in 92. Got the fight, but it was probably 5 years past his expiration date. But this night, Hector Camacho turned back the hands of time and got a stellar win, a stellar performance over a very, very tough and durable Vinny Pazienza, who was a very solid fighter, very tough fighter, crowd-pleasing, exciting, blood and guts, gave it his all, gave an honest effort every time he fought. Of course, he won a lightweight title against Greg Haugen a couple years before, lost it in a rematch, tried to get a junior welterweight belt here and lost. Eventually lost to Loreto Garza, but he did come back in 1991 to beat Gilbert Delay to win a super welterweight title all the way up to 154 pounds. Think about it, he went from 135 to 154. But maybe his real triumph was surviving an accident that nearly took his life. I mean, of course, the pictures of him wearing the halo that's on the internet, and you can probably see it, that he basically was driven to come back to get back in the ring again, and he did it. Got 2 wins over Roberto Duran, albeit a past 40-something Roberto Duran. Got a world title shot against Roy Jones Jr. in 1995. But the fact he was able to get back into the ring after that accident and with the halo inserted into his head speaks to the toughness and the courage that Vinny Pazienza was. And he was basically a very, very sturdy, sound fighter that made you want to turn on the TV and watch, especially in the East Coast, where especially when I go to Providence, Rhode Island, or Atlantic City, New Jersey, he knew how to bring a crowd. Very, very, very good fighter. Got a place in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I know that drew some sparks about it over the weekend, but you can't do anything about it. You know, I don't have a problem with it because of the low bar that was set in Hall of Fame inductions with professional boxing. I said the problem was not Pazienza going in. The problem is more how the process is, and that needs to get fixed. But Vinny Pazienza, you know, he did lose the fight to Hector Camacho, but the biggest fight he won was coming back from that near-fatal car accident and able to resume his career and managing to get a title shot against Roy Jones Jr., who was, bar none, the best fighter in the world pound for pound in 1995. That's Vinny Pazienza. And for Hector Camacho, the career, of course, is well chronicled. The substance abuse, got the wins over Greg Haugen, lost to Julio Cesar Chavez, Felix Trinidad, and Oscar De La Hoya. Got a win over the 40-something Sugar Ray Leonard after he was 6 years out of the sport. But basically, the Pazienza fight, you could say, was the end game for him, because he went back to the out of the ring issues with run-ins with the law, the alcohol abuse, the drug abuse, and among many other things. Of course, it all caught up to him in Puerto Rico in 2012 when he unfortunately was shot and killed and was pronounced dead at age 50. but this was probably his last great performance on the way out. Hector Camacho uh, fought Vinny Pazienza's fight and basically beat him at his game. Basically destroyed Vinny Pazienza's face. Basically won on a based on the equivalent of 8 rounds to 4-ish, maybe 9-3. Go that far. One of them had it like one basically gave Hector Camacho a shutout. I wouldn't even go that far. But it was 35 years ago today. It was Hector Camacho's last great fight against Vinny Pazienza. One thing about this fight that is not talked about enough was this was where the fans who once loved Hector Camacho started to turn on him because he got tired of his act being in and out of the ring and for whatever reason. Phenomenal fighter, knew how to sell, knew how to put butts in seats because of his flamboyance and, of course, whatever he wore to the ring. Because whenever you turned on the TV, the only thing on your mind was, what is Hector Camacho going to wear to the ring? That's Hector Camacho's legacy. May God rest Hector Camacho's soul. I mean, he was phenomenal before this. I said all along, his career was before the Rosario fight. The Rosario fight started the downturn. This fight against Vinny Pazienza was basically his last stand on the way out, and he did a phenomenal job. But kudos to both fighters who put on a good show that night in Atlantic City. And boy, I wish I could tell more stories like this for some fighters, because anything remotely happens to this, they just disappear, like Earl Spence Jr. He got his butt whooped by Terrence Crawford, and he's been gone ever since. I mean, that's how bad the sport has gotten, I'm telling you. I mean, but do Google Vinny Pazienza after, or the first chance you get. You're going to see the image of the halo on his head as he was working out to get back into the ring. He pushed and pushed and pushed, and he got there. There's all kinds of documentaries and books about his comeback. Must watch, must read. Oh, I wish I could talk about more boxing stories like this. The sports has gone to the absolute dump these days, I'm telling you. Sometimes when I talk about this, I'd rather stick to what I learned, because some of you young guns today in this community just had no idea what it was like back in the day. Because there was a time when stories like this was the number one story in all the sports pages, all the newspapers, all the sports talk shows, and the sports highlights. Now you can't even find a story about it in the U.S. Maybe other parts of the globe, but not in the U.S. Maybe you guys need to start appreciating the fact we're actually getting fights here in the States for my fight followers. Because some of you guys complain about A side, B side, money, location. Just be happy we're getting fights and you have something to talk about. Okay? That's all there is to it. Ugh. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. I hope everybody out there has themselves a wonderful 4th of February 2025. I will be on a spaces with my guy here, my dude, Fantasy Pat. If you want to join us for some NFL chat on the X platform, have at it. I will be there. I will also be back tomorrow to talk more Super Bowl. Thursday, I will be all over the place. And a program reminder, a week from today, on this network, on this platform, the X platform, I will be looking back at a 35-year anniversary of a giant upset that took place in Japan. I'm sure you guys can figure out what it is. And I'm going to shoot down some myths. I'm going to shoot down some, fallacies that were told. And I'm going to tell it like it is a week from today, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mark your calendars, February 11th, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sirhan on X on the X platform. And I will leave it on that. As always, make self-care your number one priority in life. Because if you don't take care of yourself first, and if you can't take care of yourself first, nothing else matters. Take care of yourself first before you take care of anything else. Until then, have yourselves a great night. Take care of yourselves. God bless, and enjoy the evening.